I'd like to call the SVCE Executive Committee meeting to order. This is Tuesday, January 23rd at noon. And some meeting protocol. Sandra, do you want to know something? Please go ahead.
Any members participating on our public side during the public comment period, you'll be asked to raise your hand and we will address you at that time. And yes, I believe that's it. So I can proceed with roll call. Chair Walia?
Here.
Vice Chair Makachek?
Present.
Director Meadows? Here. Director Klein?
Present.
Thank you. I'll note that Director Martinez-Beltran and Director Tyson are absent, but we do have a quorum.
Okay, let's call for public comment on matters that are not agendized today.
I see no hands raised.
Okay, bring it back to the committee. Start with consent calendar. Do we have any changes to approve minutes of the November 27th, 2023 executive committee meeting?
No change.
Okay. Public comment?
No hands raised.
Thank you. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second, McLean.
Can we have a vote?
Chair Walia?
Here.
Vice Chair Makachek?
Aye.
Director Meadows?
Aye.
Director Klein?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to the regular calendar, item number 2, CEO update. CEO Girish Balachandran.
Thank you, Chair Walia. So, I'll talk about our transition. It's going as planned. As I mentioned at the board meeting, the ad hoc committee met, and we basically talked about CEO and board, what behaviors from the CEO would promote effectiveness in board, and what CEO behaviors would not promote effectiveness in the board. Vice versa, what are board behaviors that would promote effectiveness for the CEO, and what board behaviors would not promote effectiveness. It's just a conversation that's worth having from time to time, because people change, situations change, and so the management style and relationship between the CEO and board should naturally change. It should not be a static relationship. So it was a useful conversation. One of the things that I'll bring back, and I just want to tee it up kind of like as I'm leaving too, bring up some of those best practices, so to speak, to the exec committee and the board for you to use. All of you have been in your elected councils, in various roles, but we'll just add this to the mix. And as far as transition to, maybe I'll hand it over to Monica just to update the exec committee on where she is with this.
Yeah, I think I gave a brief update at the last board meeting. Not a lot has changed since then, other than I continue to meet with staff on a daily basis, and almost through all of staff. And then we keep adding new people. But it's been a real, like I said at the board meeting, it's been a very kind of enlightening experience for me to really get to know people at that level. Granted, there's still opportunities for me to learn a lot more about what they're doing individually and what their departments are doing. Continuing to meet with the department heads and really understanding what their priorities are, their challenges, how they do their work. And then I'm also continuing to go out and to our communities to meet one-on-one with some of our board members and the city managers and whatever staff they bring in. So from that perspective, all is going well. I've got my vacation planned for next month. And then yeah, we'll just continue to build in some of these best practices. Girish has been doing it, and Andre have been doing a fabulous job of getting me ready to take on this particular role of working with the board. But I do appreciate having some stuff, at least if it's just for me, in writing about how these communications should go and relationships should be effective. So all good on my end.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. That's the feeling just from what we were talking about way back when I talked about retiring. This is what the board was looking for. This is what staff was looking for. So touch wood, we are where we're supposed to be. So thank you all for your support. And that's the end of my report, Chairman.
That's a great report. We're on track. Okay, any thoughts, comments? If not.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I'm here.
Thanks, Helen. Good afternoon.
So I have two comments slash questions. I guess one is meeting others in the industry, but I know you're well-known in the CCA industry. And so that's one sort of, if you comment on that. And then the other one, I'll let you comment on that.
Sure, yeah. Certainly from like the CCA space and power supply and a lot of the regulatory and policy stuff, I've been pretty involved in that since I started here. I'm starting to get more engaged. We'll have our first meeting with BACMID next week, and so staff has been preparing me along with Harish to have those discussions, to meet with other important partners or stakeholders in our space of decarbonization. And then also I attended a meeting or an event a couple of weeks ago with our board member Larry Klein was there, the Silicon Valley Youth Climate Action Group. So getting together those stakeholders. I know that Adam and his team, Pam, are going to give me the whole list of the NGOs that we work with and their importance to what we do for our mission. So we'll have some of those engagements. It's going to be hard to get it all done before Garish leaves, so the transition will happen. Some of that stuff is going to have to happen post Garish, but all the department heads are really doing a fabulous job, making sure that I'm aware of who the important partners are and who we need to have those relationships with.
Let me just add to it. At Cal CCA and the board, they've recognized that there will be transition in board members. So they changed the association policy to when there is a named incoming CEO, the incoming CEO can attend Cal CCA board. And so that's another one. And Monica also, when you think of the broad CCA CEO experience, she's in that top quartile of very broad experience in addition to the industry experience. It's a municipal utility experience, so she knows the players in the utility space. Again, where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, and CCFA and CC Power, I've been engaged with them for some time now because of some of the projects we've worked on with them. I had a role there as well. As Chris mentioned, CC Power, like Cal CCA, is also allowing me to attend meetings along with Garish right now. So.
And the second question that I have is, the SVCE, you're going to be moving into the CEO role, but you're going to leave a void. Can you make any, and maybe it's premature to talk about that, but.
Yeah, not at all. So yes, thank you for that. We have kicked off the recruitment process for Director of Power Resources. And so we're targeting internal candidates and
Monica, I'm sorry, can you speak up?
Sure, yeah.
Or I'm not sure if the speaker's close, but I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so I was saying that we've kicked off the process for selecting a Director of Power Resources. And so that person will likely be an internal candidate and will be responsible for the operations of the power portfolio and all of the settlements and compliance, that part of the business. At the same time, the policy group that does regulatory and works really closely with Ben on the legislative side, so Marin Wenzel, who's on this call as well, her team will be moved outside of my department, my current department, and will report directly to the CEO. So those are the two big changes I'm doing to my department. And those will be memorialized as part of the, I guess, mid-year budget process. Yeah, those changes in the org chart. That sounds great. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for asking so many questions.
No,
Yeah,
no,
that's a question.
I haven't thought about that part.
Yeah.
That's something we have talked about
Yep.
for a while. Thoughts? Seeing none, let's move on to item number 3, which is to elect the chair and vice chair
Speak up a little bit, please.
Oh.
I think-
Yeah. Can you hear me now, Yvonne?
Yes, I can.
Okay, there's someone there. Okay, so item number 3, elect chair and vice chair for 2024 for the SVCE Executive Committee. And this is an action item, and Andrea, our board clerk, will walk us through the process.
Thank you. So this, of course, is an annual process. Being that this is the first meeting in this group, we'd like to elect our chair and vice chair. It'll be for a 1-year term. It can be any one of our members, and there are no term limits for this role. We'll follow a process very similar to what we did at the board meeting. So we will have any nominations, then those interested will be given an opportunity to express their interest. We will then take a vote by name. In the event there are 3 or more, the people with the top 2 votes will continue on. And we will keep going until one person gets 4 votes. And we need 4 votes in order to select. And we'll have a ratifying vote.
So we need 4 out of 5 because 5 members are present today.
It's 4 of the whole, so 4 of 6.
Thank you.
4 of 6.
Yeah, 4 of 6 essentially. Yeah, okay. Thanks. Any clarifying questions from members of the committee on the process? Seeing none, I would request at this point to show your interest or nominate someone else. Floor is open for the position of chair first.
Can I make a comment first?
Go ahead. please,
Um,
Brian.
It seems like the chair of the executive committee is the vice chair of the board. And that's kind of the way I heard it's been. And I'm wondering if that's what we intend to do, what we want to do or not.
Andrea, do we have any policy along those lines?
No written policy, no formal policy in place.
Okay,
If I may just
please.
give you a fact, for the first 3 years, maybe, the chair and vice chair of the board served as the chair and vice chair of the exec committee. So, yeah, the chair of the board, chair of the exec committee were the same. When Margaret took over she was the chair for the second time, I believe in 2021, she changed, or the exec committee changed things where Liz was the chair of the exec committee. So that's when they moved to that model. So we've had 2 models essentially. Again, nothing in writing, there's no procedure.
So we have the flexibility as long as it's one of the 6 members of the EC.
Correct. And just to all possibilities, we did ask our general counsel if an exec committee member who's not present, if that person could also be elected, and the answer is yes, they don't have to be present. But you may have heard from Vice Chair Tyson about his preferences. So, which is not interested.
Good enough. Yes. I spoke with him. He wanted to be here, but as we talked earlier, he has a conflict with council priority setting today. And his goal is, as for each member of the board, that SVCE as an agency continues to focus on its mission. And we are all contributing, each one of the 13 members. Just being on the board, we all contribute so much. So having said that, any nominations from the floor? Mary?
Yeah, so I'm interested in putting my name in as chair for the executive committee.
Thank you.
And I was going to make a nomination to
Oh,
Director Klein
thank
as
you.
chair. So,
Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
I'm interested.
You know, what was that for? I'm sorry, it's really hard to,
Sorry.
It is, so I'm taking nominations for
Yes.
the committee chair.
But
And
the-
Gary indicated his interest. And Sally's comment was she was going to nominate Larry.
Right. What was it for? I didn't hear if it was for chair or vice chair, or are you doing chair?
Chair for the executive committee,
Chair. Got it.
for the executive committee.
Okay, thank you.
You were gonna make a comment,
I
Brian.
was gonna make a comment that I'd be, as vice chair, I'd be interested in being the chair, but I can defer that. I'd be interested in continuing as the vice chair. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I was interested as well, but I'm happy to defer to two of these. That's perfectly fine with me.
Okay. So,
Shall we?
uh,
So I'll move to approve.
I need to open public comment. for
Oh,
both
sorry.
Chair and vice chair,
Well, we're just doing chair right now, right?
Yeah.
but we'll
Yeah.
take public comment.
Yes.
also.
Oh, okay. Public comment.
That way we don't
Right.
forget.
Yes.
No hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay, so now do we have, I believe we have a formal nomination for Larry, and Sally seconded that. Is that correct, Sally?
I'm happy to
Yes, that's the way
second
that
that. I don't know, usually nominations don't require seconds, but
Okay,
yeah. I don't know.
can we call for a vote, please, Andrew?
Yes. Director Wallian,
Aye.
Director Mekchek,
aye.
Director Meadows. Aye. Director Martinez Beltran.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries. Director Klein as 2024 Chair of the Executive.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, and thank you, Larry, for stepping up to serve that.
Thank you.
At this point, you have an option. I'm happy to hand over the gavel to you, or do you want me to continue with the rest of the meeting? Your choice.
It's up to you. I'm happy to take on the role. I'll continue, let me just continue with the role then. So first, I just want to thank, thank you for the opportunity to be chair for the executive committee. I do think that, having Sunnyvale as part of this has been an honor, and, especially because we're one of the biggest residencies from that standpoint, as far as SVCE is concerned. Personally, this is, one of my favorite, jurisdictional representations. I do think that, this organization makes a big difference. And, it's not just that future of climate change, but, but making a difference in the day-to-day lives of our residents. And to me, that's the best thing. It's like, being able to do what PG&E says that they should be doing is, I think, one of the positive things in this organization, showing a history of making a significant difference as far as climate change is really important. So from that standpoint, thank you for the support in being chair. And with that, I will go ahead and start the next section of item 3, taking nominations for item 4? Three. Taking nominations for vice chair, and
May I have a quick comment, Larry? Thank
Sure.
you so much for stepping up. And because we had only one nomination, for chair, I did not request a 60-second statement.
Oh.
But I just wanted to point
I-
that out
I
for
realize.
vice chair. And so thank you for sharing that with us.
no, thank
Once we
you.
voted.
Yes. So we'll move on to nominations for vice chair.
I would like to nominate myself.
And I fully support that. Thank you. Thank you for what you've done. Any other nominations? Seeing none, we will go ahead to a vote. You can say something now or before or after, but let's go ahead and do the vote first. And
You want to take public comment, or we took public
we
comment?
took public comment for
Okay.
both.
Okay.
Yes.
Could I have a second for that?
Oh, I will.
I'm happy to.
There we go.
Okay, and to vote, Director Wallian. Aye. Director Mekchek,
Aye.
Director Meadows. Aye. Director Martinez Beltran.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries. Vice Chair of 2024 Executive Committee is directed.
Thank you. Vice chair.
So I'll make some brief comments. I'm not going to repeat anything that you've said, but I think that Silicon Valley Clean Energy has a huge opportunity to lead in California and And with the brand Silicon Valley Clean Energy, I think we can lead in the nation. I think that it's wonderful to be part of an organization that actually, I think, can move the needle now, you know, through leverage. And so I'm absolutely delighted to be vice chair. Thank you for your support. I guess the other thing is that there's other committees, and I think that the breadth that we've got in the participation on the various committees is very important. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Congratulations, and
Thank you.
thank you to both Gary and Brian.
Congratulations. Just a logistics thing.
Yes.
With especially people on that end of the table, please raise your voices when you speak.
Okay.
Those who are listening in remotely, they're just giving, it's difficult to speak there, so I'll just mention this again. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Our next item is item four, select a regular meeting schedule for 2024 executive committee meetings. Is there a report?
So currently, 2023 executive committee met every Friday at 10 a.m., fourth Friday at 10 a.m.
Every Friday.
Yeah.
You were checking me out.
Right. So we are recommending that we keep that same fourth Friday at 10 a.m. schedule unless your schedules do not permit.
Thank you. Are there any comments?
I'll support that.
My only question, no comments from anyone? My only question was the May 24th meeting. Is the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, so a long weekend. And whether or not people, I think we had issues last year getting quorum or we're right on the edge of quorum. Just to bring that up, let's clarify that early in May, whether or not we need to conceivably schedule another meeting earlier in the week or the following week, just to make sure that, we have a quorum early. Because I think we were close last year. But other than that, and then as far as November 29th or December 6th, we will be polling early November is the goal.
Correct. We'll check your schedules around that time frame.
Okay,
Given holidays.
all right.
Absolutely.
So we're not gonna do that now. All right.
And forgive me, July, we're out.
Right. July, we're
Yeah.
proposing to cancel for a summer reason.
And I will not be here on the 26th of April, which is the fourth Friday. So just giving a heads up.
Oh,
Thank you, Yvonne.
actually, I will not be either, so then that takes you to the edge of the quorum depending on the other four members.
So let's poll for April as we get into the beginning of April. I'm assuming spring break or something.
Europe visiting
Oh.
my daughter.
Good. Congratulations.
Yes.
Do we have the ability to move this meeting date by a few days? Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
so.
we can add on.
You can pull it, right, okay.
It's good to do, just from a general standpoint, get these tentative dates on the calendar and realize, and as we get closer, especially if you ever have any issues that are coming up, like April 26th, we can start polling, at least 3 or 4 weeks early to figure out, is there a better day for quorum? And sometimes maybe we have quorum plus one, maybe not everyone, but it's that sort of thing, trying to make sure that we just have enough people.
And maybe we can let you know, Andrea, if we know we have a conflict.
Yes,
Yes,
that would be very helpful.
yes.
I also have to say, March 22nd, I'm chairing the State League of Cities Housing Policy Committee.
Oh, wow.
I will not be able to do that as well. I'm their chair.
Thank you, Yvonne. Okay, so we'll check on that one also. But appreciate it. Is there any comment from anyone online?
No public comment.
No public comment? Is there a motion to approve our
So moved.
vice chair? Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. Please conduct a roll call vote.
Will do. Sarah Klein,
Aye.
Vice Chair Makachuk,
Aye.
Director Walia,
Aye.
Director Meadows, Director Martinez-Beltran.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Our next item is item 5, introduction to SVCE's load management standards compliance plan obligation. Is there a staff report?
Yes, so those are cheat sheet.
That's what I get for not reading. And staff speaking will be Satalia. Sorry.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. So I will be discussing the load management standards in this presentation. And the focus of the deck is to introduce and give some context on the load management standards, and then provide you with an update on SVC's plan for developing the compliance plan. So this is a completely new compliance obligation that will be ongoing and entail annual submissions. So it's the first time, but not the last time that you'll hear about the load management standards. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to start off by talking about what the load management standards are. So these were regulations that were adopted by the California Energy Commission to promote electricity demand flexibility. And when you hear the term demand flexibility, you might hear some other terms used interchangeably. So these are things like load flexibility, demand management, demand side management, and all of these are referring to the same thing, which is load shifting. Moving when you use your electricity to lower cost and cleaner hours. And so I want to go through the 6 objectives of the load management standards. So when the CEC adopted these load management standards, they wanted to and want to get to these 6 things. The first is to encourage the use of electricity during off-peak hours, and then control the peak, improve equity, efficiency, and reliability on the grid, and then lessen or delay the need for new electrical capacity. And then, of course, you have reducing fossil fuel consumption and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So if you can control the peak, which is what these load management standards are trying to get us to do, then you're making it more affordable to operate the grid. And then if you're a customer and you're shifting your usage out of the peak, then you're using electricity when supply to the grid is cleanest and also most affordable. So all of this contributes to SVC's service goals of providing our customers with affordable, clean, and reliable electricity. Next slide, please. So on this slide, I want to talk about the current grid conditions and why the CEC adopted the load management standards and kind of how they got to the load management standards. So they concluded that past demand efforts are no longer sufficient. So if you look at the right-hand side of this slide, you can see the present and future grid circumstances. So in terms of the supply, we have a lot of renewables on the grid. So this means that there's variable capacity, and that's resulting in a lot of daily price volatility. And then on the demand side, we are moving to all electric. We have connected flexible loads, and this is all resulting in forecasters expecting 70% or more load growth. So the CEC looked at this and realized that what we really need to be doing is moving to dynamic rates, because the demand management programs of the past, which were built to the conditions of the past in a different supply dynamic, are no longer effective and don't really encourage shifting to non-peak hours enough. So this compliance plan obligation that we are required to file is all about the CEC wanting to see what we're doing as a load serving entity to help transition from the past to the future. And the policy implication here is that California is very focused on shifting usage to non-peak hours. And this compliance plan is their way of tracking progress on this policy directive. Next slide, please. So to zoom in on how they're going to be tracking the progress, I want to kind of double click on the plan itself and the requirements. So we will have to file this compliance plan to the CEC every 3 years. And the plan has to describe how SVCE's compliance plan meets the load management standard goals. So those were the objectives that I went over on the earlier slide. And the second thing is that the plan has to evaluate cost effectiveness, equity, technological feasibility, benefits to the grid, and benefits to customers of either moving to dynamic rates or offering programs. And so if you look at the table at the bottom of this slide, there's 2 squares that are baby blue. And the first is April 1st, 2024. And that's when our first compliance plan is due. And then the second is April 1st of 2027. That's when our second compliance plan is due. So in between 2024 and 2027, there's a huge chunk of time where the CPUC is going to be launching and offering real-time pricing pilots. And so the important takeaway here is that this period of time in between the first and the second compliance plan is really the time that's going to give SVC the opportunity to evaluate dynamic rates and observe how customers respond to them to better inform the 2 requirements for the plan. Next slide, please. So these pilots that are going to be offered in between the first and second compliance plan are CPUC pilots that PG&E is operating. And this table kind of explains more about the pilots. There's really 3, and they're all getting to the same thing, which is incentivizing customers to shift their load. And so 2 of the pilots are scheduled to start this summer. And then the third one is scheduled to start at the start of 2025. And so what I really want to highlight is that these are optional pilots, and we anticipate very few customers enrolling in them. And that's really because of 2 things. One, the rates are going to be available for a short time. They're pilots, they're not permanent tariffs. And then 2, moving to real-time pricing dynamic rates entails a huge customer education and awareness for taking, because one have to what these rates are going to be doing, and they have to implement the systems and technology so that they can automate their responses to real-time pricing signals. So even in the long term, we expect most of the interest in dynamic rates to come from our large commercial customers. Next slide, please.
Can I ask, what is DAHRTP? I may have missed that. The third pilot there? Did you
get the question, Sidlali?
She seems frozen.
She might be.
Yeah.
Wait.
It's day ahead an hourly real-time pricing.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Sally, I couldn't quite hear that last sentence.
The question was what is DAHRTP and
It's day ahead and hourly real-time pricing.
But we lost our presenter, I think.
Let me check with Maureen.
Yes.
yeah. Let's pause for a moment while we're.
I think she just rejoined.
I'll ask another clarifying question from the prior slide. Sidlali, you mentioned April 1st.
One second, I want to make sure she's on. is the
She's
question.
not there, yes. Thanks.
And Sid, you should actually tell us when.
Yeah, you can ask, Maureen
Oh.
might be able to jump in and
Ah,
answer to
okay.
this. So Maureen's there and. if
Okay,
not,
Sure.
we'll
It's-
figure it out.
My question is very simple. I heard earlier the new compliance the new compliance obligation is going to be annual. But the first compliance plan is April 1st, 2024. The second one is April 1st, 2027. So help me with that. Is it yearly or they're two separate things?
Yeah, so, and, Celia can jump in here as well when she's online, but, yeah, so there's a plan due every 3 years, but we have an obligation to file a, sort of interim report every year to report out on how we're doing on our plan. And I see Celia rejoined, so I don't know if you caught.
Yes,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. I think my internet just decided to not function. But yes, Maren, I caught the end of that question. Maren is correct. So I will get to that in one of the later slides, but there's the compliance plan, which has to be filed every 3 years. And then there's an annual reporting component as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move on? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So continuing on here, I was about to get into our plan for the first plan. So I kind of provided some context on the cyclical nature of the compliance plan itself and how the real-time pricing pilots are going to inform our second compliance plan. But I want to focus here on our plan for the first compliance plan, which is the one that we'll be submitting in April. So because of all of the various real-time pricing pilots not launching until after our plan is submitted, the theme of our first compliance plan is really twofold. And the first is to focus on SVCE's efforts to better match supply and demand to date through our existing programs. So these are things like the Grid Shift program, the Lights on Silicon Valley program. And then the second thing we'll plan to focus on for this first plan is SVCE's exploration of hourly rates through our participation in the pilots. And so beyond the themes of our first plan, I kind of want to turn to what happens after we submit the plan, consequences of non-compliance, and then the annual reporting requirement. And so this is on the white portion of the slide. So the CEC is going to be looking for good faith efforts to comply with the regulations. And after reviewing the plan, they can request additional information or recommend changes. And if a load serving entity is found to be non-compliant, then the CEC's executive director may file a complaint with the CEC or seek injunctive relief. And after the first submission of our compliance plan, we will have to file annual reports that demonstrate progress towards our implementation of our plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to wrap up here, I want to go through the next steps leading up to our April filing. At the February Executive Committee meeting, we plan to go through the content of our first compliance plan and then seek board approval at the March meeting and then file the plan by April 1st. So there's a lot of influx in terms of the pilot start dates, but I want to emphasize that regardless of what happens at the CPUC, SVCE will meet its April 1st, 2024 compliance plan deadline. And so a lot of us have been diligently working on the content of the plan, preparing for the February discussion. And that's all for today. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions, first Vice Chair?
I have a number of questions and kind of comments. As soon as you started presenting, I was thinking of the e-electric, because I think that's the closest thing that we've got to really providing an incentive for people to move their load. When I'm thinking about the rates and having a pilot, I recognize the commercial versus the residential. You know, we don't really move the needle that much at the residential level. But I think it's still important for people to understand that if there's a possibility for them to take advantage of rates, i.e. to move their load, we should encourage that. And I think that's a leadership role that we could have. I look at this and I think it's a real collaboration opportunity as well with the other CCAs. And, you know, why recreate the wheel? But, you know, we don't have a lot of agricultural load
No.
here, but we've got other loads. But anyways, and in terms of the rates, and this is kind of a question, but I don't think you're gonna want to answer it now. It's maybe too detailed, but when you think of reducing your load or actually backfeeding your load when you've got batteries, you know, there's an opportunity there at the residential level. And I know that with the newer vehicles that have the vehicle to grid opportunity, you can, if you've got, say, one of the newest Cybertrucks, you can backfeed, I think it's 11.2 kilowatts. Yeah, it's like, I think 9 power walls, something like that. Like it's immense. I've got 2 power walls today and I'm getting a Cybertruck. So it'll give me a lot of ability to not only cut my load, but I could backfeed. And with that, I would volunteer to add initial thoughts on anything that you want to do on the residential side if you're trying to come up with different ideas or whatever. I find that actually very interesting and kind of exciting. So, and I think there's a lot of people that want to contribute and reduce their load. So sorry, that's kind of some questions, but a whole bunch of comments as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we will discuss, we have plans to discuss with the board any future or any participation in these pilots. So we haven't brought it to you yet because there's so much in flux at the CPUC, but once things are finalized, yes, we'll be having those discussions about, you know, how can we get residential involved more, and we'd be happy to hear your ideas.
Thank you. Director Meadows?
Yes, thank you. So I don't know if this is an observation or a question. I'll raise the inflection at the end of the sentence. So to turn it into a question. So on your slide where you talked about this year's plan and then the 3 years from now, the 2027 plan, and we're running a number of pilots between now and then. So to me, that says that yes, this year's plan being the first one is an attempt at putting a stake in the ground, but the pilots are really going to develop the metrics so that in 2027, the second plan is actually based on data, which isn't to say this year's plan isn't, but it's not probably as robust a data as we are going to develop through doing the pilots. Is that a correct? See, I am turning it into a question. Is that
Yes,
a correct interpretation?
Yes, that is spot on. It's spot on. So our first plan is going to be more qualitative because of the limited data that we have. And then the 2027, the second plan will be more robust.
And CPUC or whatever, they understand that? Because you talked about a compliance stick through the annual reports, kind of reminded me of housing element for those on councils. And so presumably there's a different level of standard they would apply in 2027 than they will apply to this year's plan. Question?
Yeah, so the indication we've gotten from the California Energy Commission staff is that this first plan is really going to be evaluated based on good faith efforts. And so I do expect them to consider all of the circumstances when they're evaluating and reviewing our first plan.
Okay, thank you. And that was CEC, not CPUC, like I said. All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a comment. Thank you, Dr. Meadows, for bringing that up, the similarity with the housing element. That good faith efforts within codes reminded me exactly of that. And what makes me happy here is the California, it's an assumption, but the California Energy Commission is perhaps going ahead with it in the right manner versus what most cities, at least Saratoga, is struggling with the HCD, with the housing. Because the goal is to move forward in the right direction, and no entity can switch that overnight. So in this one, I'm very happy that we are able to move forward, and I completely agree with Director Makachek about the role, the incentives to bring the residential customers on board. That is where the interest is, as we talk all the time, that the residents and the youth are really keen to make changes, make not just dense, but massive change for the climate change in terms of reducing emissions. So in some ways, I am actually happy with the CEC's goal to have compliance plans. It helps set direction for agencies, as long as they are good in terms of rewarding us with the good faith efforts and not expecting miracles. So that's some of my.
Good. Director Martinez Beltran, anything?
Yes, thank you. I'd love to see, and I don't know if we have something baked into the plan, but I think definitely financial incentives are one way to get people to make the change, but also recognition. And I think, businesses especially, but also residents are looking for recognition also goes a long way. So is there some type of a label or identifier for somebody who really is making that change and making an ambitious change, that we could give them some type of a name, a marker that they are now I don't know what the name would be, but some type of an elite group that has really led the charge on load management and changing that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I've noted it down, so I can discuss it with the marketing team.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And I had several questions. First, real-time pricing. I was doing fixed point meter reading back in the late 90s. And it's interesting that we're, almost 30 years later, finally trying to roll it out to all of California. From a reporting standpoint, so the April 1st of the two dates, the reporting is on a calendar year. Is it, so we put our draft plan in April, assume it rolls out. Are we talking about the first reporting December 31st of this year, July 1st? What's the expectation of, okay, you have your plan, how quickly did you implement it, and when is that first reporting period?
Yeah, so the annual progress updates are 1 year after the plan is approved.
Okay, so an April 1st update every year. Okay, I appreciate that. And then as far as rollout, actually, let's talk about our coverage network from a residential and business standpoint. What percentage of the meters have the capability to completely do this right now? And I know that there are especially business customers that may or may not be with us or PG&E that have that capability, because some of them are already under hourly. At least I know of a few. I know that there are businesses out there, like especially department stores and a few others that have tried to do that, at least from a California standpoint. I know Walmart was looking at ways to deal with peak load, looking at battery storage just to deal with their peak load costing. So do we have a good feel for our coverage of business and residential? What those meters, how much of those meters are already supporting that technology or that idea?
Yeah, so we have smart meters. I can't see if anyone from Esker is in the room, but they would be able to speak to what the commercial customers have. more than I can as a regulatory person.
I have
Don?
tried to unmute, yes, Don Gray.
And Adam.
Can you hear me? Okay.
We can.
Okay. So yeah, pretty much all commercial and residential customers have meters that that meter at least hourly or even less in the case of commercial. So the limitation isn't so much the meter, it's more PG&E's system for processing that hourly meter data. We can do that for a limited number of accounts now, and these pilots that are being considered will also be handled by PG&E's current systems. And I say current systems because they're actually working on developing this capacity right now. But they're shooting for, in the 2027 timeframe, being able to do it more universally. So anyway, short ride is historically the issue has not so much been the meter as processing of the meter data. That is in the process of being fixed. We're able to do it on a limited basis now. And we'll be able to do it more broadly by the 2027 timeframe.
Thank you, Don. And as far as that, so right now, I know we have certain customers with that capability. Are we able to, let's say, audit that, how that audit that data transfer right now from PG&E, or is that something that we need to set up from a SVCE standpoint that we're not?
So we could do it. Again, our arrangement, our custom 24/7 arrangement, for instance, is built over hourly data, and that involves several hundred accounts. So we're acquiring that information, we're billing off of it on an hourly basis, and auditing it. So we do have that ability. Again, it's on for a focused number of accounts, and that's what we would have, for the next year or two at least, before the capability really can scale.
Okay, thank you. And I see Adam has his hand up also.
Adam, I've
Yeah,
unmuted
thank you. I just want to add, from a customer perspective, the participation is really more hinged on device connectivity. Day-ahead real-time prices and kind of optimizing for price is going to be an automation issue. So yeah, your Cybertruck can do it, but we want to kind of expand that to your washing machine, your refrigerator, your heat pump, whatever. That's going to be the winning combination for customers.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that feedback. And then just finally, as far as the initial draft and kind of rolling that out, have we already talked to, sounds like we're going to be focusing on business customers initially and not dealing with residential at all. Have we already started discussions with our business customers to see if there's interest and what that capability, because I'm assuming that there are already some that would be ready to jump on this, and having those discussions early might increase participation, especially as we look at pilot programs. Adam?
Great question. We have not gone out to our customers. We're watching the AgFit pilots, and the name has expanded. The name has not expanded, but the program has. So essentially, AgFit is running real-time, kind of day-ahead real-time pricing signals to ag customers, but it's the same technology that would be applicable in a commercial building or any other manufacturing setting. I think the concern from my perspective anyway is that the incremental difference between a customer who is successfully participating in a time of use rate and a day ahead rate might be kind of minimal shoulder hours, depending on how these rates are designed, whether there's deep discounts in springtime, and then of course the opposite when you get into fall and the heavy heat waves.
Absolutely. And I'm assuming that draft will cover, let's say, the seasonal targets and the seasonal, I would assume, incentives depending upon what that company does and all that. So looking forward to that. Any other questions from our board members? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? And nothing, and no motion needed to be taken. So. Yes. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Chloe. Our next item is item 6, program snapshot electrifying decarbonization engagement for healthy and safe communities. Staff member, so Elizabeth.
Eric Rodriguez.
Oh.
You go back a couple if it wants to.
Yes, it wants to. No, you're the boss.
Yeah, we will be flexible to technology. Okay. All right, thank you. So we have just a short presentation and then we'll open up and hear kind of questions and discussions, moving from real-time pricing and automated devices into engagement and people in our community, the other, important network that's essential to changing and decarbonization. So go to the next slide, Andrea. I'm just going to do a brief intro and then Eric's going to walk you through the program. So overarching, here's the big challenge, is that we need to move electrification from a niche market of early adopters to a universal market that's accessible to everyone. And we all know this. We also hear this input from you all often of, how can we get this into everyone's home? How can we make sure that it's working for the diverse community members that we have? And then in addition, these new BACMed rules, which are on zero NOx appliances and begin to roll out implementation in 2027, set a real target for that widespread adoption, set a goalpost for us to move from this hundreds, thousands to tens of thousands of retrofits a year. And to get to that broad level of adoption, we know that we need broad input. We're starting to move this needle from early adopters through programs like our multifamily affordable housing direct install program, through online contractor training, by providing EVI incentives at multifamily. But again, to really move this needle, we're going to have the most effective programs, the most effective policies, through developing a system to have really intentional and structured engagement from diverse groups. We're really aware that we don't know everything. We don't know everybody's position and situation. But if we can get that input and get it early on in a deep way, we think we can build better programs and better policies that really can serve all of our community. So Eric's now going to walk you through the program design that we have in place to help us meet this goal.
Thanks, Zoe. Good afternoon, directors. My name is Eric Rodriguez. I'm a programs lead on the decarbonization policy and programs team. I've had the privilege of leading SVCE's building electrification stakeholder engagement since April last year. So I'm coming up on a year soon. Next slide. The name of the program we're highlighting today is Silicon Valley Building Electrification Stronger Together, also known as SVBEST. The purpose of SVBEST is to build engagement and get input on how different communities can start down the path to electrification. We are meeting these groups where they are because they juggle many priorities in our community. Electrification might be a new idea. As an example, we have a multifamily direct install program. Funds that provided will help us engage with those groups, especially renters who might not otherwise have the capacity to engage. Next slide. So this is a snapshot of relationships we've had in the past. Historically, we've had strong relationships with jurisdictions, thought leaders, these CCAs, and elected officials. SVBEST will help us expand our network and our knowledge. Next slide. We recognize that to achieve a carbon-free region, we need to work with additional constituencies that have a unique perspective on how the transition can happen. This year will focus on getting more input from workforce, housing, and low and moderate income groups and individuals. We know, for example, that contractor education is a key component to educate customers about electrification appliances. We also know that 50% of our customers in our service territory are renters. Finally, we also know that a portion of our population will have a difficulty electrifying because they cannot afford to, especially low-income households. We'll provide paid incentives to selected groups to provide deep input on selected initiatives. Groups will have to apply for this incentive and commit to specific deliverables. Next slide. We started, our engagement goals. We started this year by establishing relationships. This year, SVBest will engage with these groups through our programs and initiatives. We have a lot to gain from their feedback, and we'll build the solutions where we need to go. We aim to build broad support and preparation for building electrification. By bringing new partners together and what we learned, we're able to help shape the comprehensive path forward that brings us to electrification. People will be excited because they've contributed to solution before, and the engagement and information will result in responsive policies and programs that will help residents make the switch. Next slide. So here's what this looks like by the numbers. I've already met with dozens of groups in our region, and information from these meetings went into forming the design for SVBest. In workforce, I've met with working partnerships and Rising Sun Center for Opportunity. As a result of this engagement, SVCE has joined two regional working groups as they convene to shape high-road job creation in the electrification sector. In housing, we've begun our engagement with multifamily direct install program. Through this process, we've heard from affordable housing providers like MidPen and city housing staff such as Rebecca Garcia from the city of Morgan Hill. She was a great conversation. We're also hearing from the needs from the community, from stakeholders like climate resilient communities. There are folks, it's an open invitation for directors here. If there are folks you'd like us to reach out to in your community, please let us know. One key thing that I've learned in this engagement so far is that in order to get meaningful input from these groups, there's a need to provide incentive to do so. It has become standard practice for other agencies to provide incentives for time-intensive public engagement processes. The last bullet highlights the incentive process we will be launching soon. Next slide. Oh, no, sorry, keep it there. This will be the first time as an organization, just want to pause here because it's an important, milestone for our organization. It's the first time we're doing it, and we're hopeful that what we've learned so far from our new partners and just what we've seen across the CCA world, that we have an opportunity to tweak this and within the year, and as we learn more. Next slide. I thank you for your support for this work and would love to open for questions and comments from directors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question?
If I may just add one thing, I just want to say thank you to Zoe and Eric for that presentation and for all their work putting this together. I think we're really excited about getting moved into this. I just want to, because I know there's some new faces on the executive committee and things have changed, but just a reminder that this is a program snapshot. So this is something we've been doing for a year. I can't remember exactly now when we started even, which is great. It means we've been doing it for long enough that it's just kind of in my mind. It's intended as an informational item to really give a little bit of extra visibility to you all on an effort that is sort of already underway, it's happening, or it's about to begin. And so just wanted to kind of frame that, really happy to answer questions, really happy to hear reactions or thoughts, and we will certainly take that in. But in terms of where this is in the life cycle, it's sort of an informational moment. With that, that's just the recap.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the executive?
So I take it you don't want us to revamp the program. Subliminal message there, Justin, very subtle. Got it. Okay, so that's not my question. I just have to poke you a little bit. So, so I want to reinforce your contractor's message. My N is very small. I haven't done the stakeholder meetings, but I've heard both from a contractor and I've heard from residents who can't find contractors who can do this. So I think that has got to be a critical, if you have contractors, and I can give you a friend of mine had a cool heater example, I guess it was. If they call in contractors and none of them have expertise in anything other than the gas heaters, then the residents don't have options. So I do agree that's really a critical piece. And then I was wondering, and maybe this is not the best place to answer it, but you talked about Bay Area air quality management standards in 2027. And this might be a question for later for the board, but how, if at all, does the Berkeley decision affect Vacumed's ability to do in 2027 what they want to? So that's, you don't have to answer that right now, but I think that would be a good question for the board to understand.
We have the preeminent expert.
Do we? Okay.
I don't know if I want that title, but. So yeah, so I'm happy to answer, so in a framing way, I think one thing is that the Berkeley's gas ban and Vacumed's rules use really different legal authority. And so Berkeley's gas ban relied on police powers. And then Vacumed as an air district has pretty broad sweeping powers under the Clean Air Act to regulate air pollution. And it's specifically focused on NOx and air pollution. So they shouldn't be related in that way. The other thing that's important to know is, and we call them Vacumed rules, they're actually rule amendments. So they had a really savvy team clearly that tapped in and they said, we already have this authority. We're not creating a new rule, we're amending the rule. So I think from a legal construct, they walked down different.
Okay, when you say clean air standards, those are the federal standards, not just the state standards.
That's right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that makes me feel better. Totally serious. I mean,
Right.
when the gas ban came out, I'm like, oh, you know, what have we been working on? But
It doesn't mean that there won't be challenges
Yes,
along the
right,
way,
of
because
course.
this is the
There
process,
always
this is
are,
how we
right.
do things.
Yes.
But
all right.
Sorry. Board member Martinez Beltran.
Thank you. I would just, I would say I would love to, I'm sure you are talking with developers as part of this, but I think they could be very helpful for us, especially since we've seen them really take to electrification and we haven't seen as much pushback as people had anticipated. I think that's an exciting nugget for us, and I would love to see us try to leverage that a little bit more, maybe with providing those who haven't, come on as quickly, examples or financial kind of templates or benefits to them. I think that would be great. I'm assuming that you have done that, but I'd like to hear a little bit about that. And then also, I would also encourage that we continue to talk. I thought you said two, but maybe it was more that we continue to talk with our unions. I just got back this weekend from a board retreat and we went to the International Carpenters Training Facility in Nevada, and it is really something. And I think if we are able to get them to, and be partners, I mean, we're going to really see this take off even further. So if we've got everybody training up on this and it's not seen as something, scary or that's kind of new anymore, but if they're part of it, of course, anybody who's part of something is much more willing to go.
Thank you.
I'll piggyback on that because I was thinking of what Director Meadows pointed out, and again, going back to housing and all the other groups that we are meeting with in my city. Unions was one thing, as Director Martinez-Beltran mentioned, but the question really comes back to contractors. So unions is one way. The other thing that I saw in your presentation earlier was working with the community colleges, because they are also expanding in a big way, especially the West Valley Mission. We had that meeting in Saratoga a week ago with them, Chancellor, and they have actually, I think they have they rolled it out in spring semester free tuition for people in the district. And they are going in a big way with workforce development so just tying all the pieces together, That's, and my remark is that's what makes me, you talked about the jurisdiction, SVCE, and your client you mentioned earlier. That's what makes me very happy that when 13 agencies from 13 different cities, we come together here, we can bring all the pieces together, the ideas, to be more effective for the Bay Area, for our county. And those are some of my thoughts. Again, thank you so much, Justin, for continuing with the programs update. Your whole team, everyone, and I'm very thrilled. I'm happy.
So, and I'll echo that. So thank you for this program. You know, it's making the positive change in our community, which I think is really important. And appreciate, you know, we have talked at length about affordable housing developers, and, you know, happy that's, you know, you're talking to them, because I think that there's an economy of scale there that's very easy to move the needle faster than not that single family residential doesn't need it, but we can make a bigger change as far as that's concerned. You mentioned manufacturers on this list. How much are we dealing directly with them on trying to look at best practices, buying in bulk? Are there programs there that, you know, we can, let's say, be the funnel for the contractors that are going into homes to say, okay, you know, come to us. We don't want to be the reseller, but conceivably, that's one way to lower the per person cost from a single family standpoint. You mentioned manufacturers, so I'm just wondering, can you give me a little light on those discussions?
Yeah, I'd say that that's in like the conceptual stage of things now, in terms of they're on our list for potential partners, just as you mentioned. There also has been a bigger effort at the state level too, to organize statewide manufacturers. So we're also just strategically figuring out how much are one-on-one relationships versus being part of that kind of larger coalition, how can we be most effective.
Oh, great. And then, yeah, you talked, and I think the biggest one of the biggest barriers, of course, is workforce, and I don't want to belabor that, but I do think that, you know, working with the community colleges, and whether or not SVCE could even sponsor a program or help a program, you know, I think there's values there also that the more people we have trained in the industry, the better it is for our region in general, and conceivably giving opportunities to a portion of the workforce that didn't consider that as a potential job. So I do think that you know, that's another way that we can, as an organization, make a positive impact. Any other comments?
Chair,
Martinez.
thank you. I wanted to ask Zoe, so would this include, I've spoke before about, you know, having interchangeable water heaters, sort of like your dryer and your refrigerator. Is that maybe something that you're talking with manufacturers about?
Can you explain the thing between the refrigerator and the dryer? I don't think
So I've had, oh, oops, did I lose you guys?
No, you're still here.
Okay, everything went from my screen. Sorry. Oh, there we go. So, for example, how you have a dryer, and if somebody is a renter, you can take your dryer with you to your new place of residence. You can also take your refrigerator with you to your new place of residence, but you're not able to take a water heater. And so we have, I think it's 40% renters. If we had water heaters that were able to be interchangeable and go with the renter, like a refrigerator or a washer or dryer, then we would probably have more people investing in doing electric water heaters, you know, so something like that. Basically making the demand for innovation.
Yeah, great. Thanks for clarifying. So I have actually recently learned there are portable heat pumps that do the AC and the heating for that exact reason. So I know that on the DPP-wide team, not as much part of this effort, we are looking into those options to better understand them. How I imagine the work that Eric talked about feeding into this is that when we talk to renters, we hear about these challenges. And then we can go to the market, to contractors, to manufacturers and say, hey, these are the solutions that, that people are looking for to kind of help inform that way. If it's
Exactly.
inform our direct program design and say, oh, there actually is a real demand and need for this type of portable equipment that we would make.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know it's a bit of an idea out there, but I think it really, as a renter, I think it would be a fantastic thing to do.
Remember? No one else? Is there anyone for the public wishing to speak on this item?
No hands raised.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Looking forward to additional information and rollout, that this is, I think, the positive impact that we can make. And with that is our last item for the day. And we will go ahead and go to comments and staff remarks for non-agenda items. Any other comments? Vice Chair?
I'll make two comments, and I was gonna fold the first one into the program snapshot, but I thought I'd just wait. If you're talking about constituents, a lot of my constituents in Juan Sereno, they have expressed significant concern with moving to electrification when the power goes out, right? And being able to meet the load. And I think that's a communication opportunity for us, because people want to trust us, but they don't trust PG&E, if you will. So there's an opportunity there. I just wanted to make that as a comment for everyone to think about, staff. And then the second point, I'd kind of like to end on something really positive. I'm not sure if everyone's heard about the new electric locomotives that Caltrain is putting in. And it's gonna be less, cleaner air, and at the same time, it's gonna be faster service. So I think that's really exciting. And I just wanted to mention that. That's gonna be in the springtime.
September.
September.
Thank you. Other comments?
I just have a question for Girish, Andrea, maybe Monica, who's not here. In terms of the new composition, or slightly new composition of this committee, how does that impact who you'll invite to rock this year? Or we can take that offline if you want.
Offline, please.
Yes. But I would like to use that as a reminder that if you are interested in any of our other committees, please let me know.
Yes.
Thank you. And I had, so a quick comment. So one of the things that so I was in DC last week. Sorry, I'm still a little out of it. I was in DC last week at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and one of the topics was, kind of maximizing our electric grid and changes that they can do locally to, let's say, make it easier for certain people in our community to move to more electric and other options and other ordinances. And I can't find all of my notes now, but one of the things that one of the cities was doing was requiring from the electric panel a simple grid change so that some sort of generator could be added with limited. So when a panel is being upgraded, it's, according to the person speaking, it was $50 to $100 to add basically a hookup in case to deal with an external generator. Not that we want to encourage external generators, but we have locations in the mountains where they've lost power for an extended period of time, and I need to go back through and figure out some of the, let's say, low hanging recommendations that they have for a multitude of things to deal with, ongoing storm issues and all that. As much as we want the power to always be on, I'll say I have to meet every month with PG&E to deal with connections or disconnection issues that just aren't happening. And we're about to enter the storm season, and it's seeing the reality of that we don't want to encourage generators. That being said, we need to make sure that, there are, at least for some of them in our community, that option, because it's not something that you can just say, I have a generator. You have elderly people or people on medical equipment that can't, I number of issues that I had during the last the storm season last year regarding schools that are out of power or issues with certain neighborhoods where, we were trying to move senior people from one community to another just so that they have those hookups and all that, I think become important. So I'll go back through that and pass some of those, let's say, best practices or at least ideas that can go forward that this is I think a good sounding board for a multitude of ideas that's why I go to national conferences and all that. So beyond, the electrify everything and, continuing to fight for removing gas, it's trying to figure out how to best implement this. And we have a very diverse community between our residential and business community, and trying to figure out how to deal with certain issues that they have. So I'll leave it at that, but I'll come back to staff with that when I get a chance. Okay. See no other comments. So with that, we will adjourn the meeting at 1:23 p.m. Thanks, everyone, for being here.